Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have another take on our Silver Surfer Mr. Negative build. This is one of the best or most consistent decks in the game right now, and Bast really helps increase that consistency because Bast is going to be able to be used to set the power of all of the cards in your hand to 3, and pretty much every single card in this list benefits if it gets hit with Bast. And so it doesn't matter what we draw into. We don't have to have any awkward plays around Bast. We can throw it anytime we draw it and get some upside from it. And the rest of the list curves into a Mr. Negative play line. We don't typically have to have Mr. Negative. He just increases our high roll potential. If we don't, then we want to play our 3-cost cards onto the board relatively early. Our Brood is going to be one of our biggest, most consistent power pushes into a Silver Surfer, or if we don't have our Silver Surfer, we don't have Mr. Negative, we can always curve into Iron Man on 5, into a Mystique on 6, along with a Wolfsbane, a Brood, a Rogue, an Ironheart, whatever else we need to push to be able to win. And so this deck has a really high ceiling, but it also has a very consistent power push. And so even if you don't draw into your good resources, the strength of this deck lies in that you can easily identify if you're able to outpower or outpace the opponent, and you can retreat for 1 or 2 cubes. If you do have the advantage, for me it's a lot easier to identify that and snap into a 4 or an 8 cube game by being able to tell how good your power push is compared to what the opponent might have. Now, the list does struggle against leech plays somewhat. You can curve your cards out early. You don't always have to fold to a leech because depending on what you top deck, you might get more benefit out of that last turn than they do. But depending on what your opponent's running, you may not want to hold your Iron Man and your Mystique until the last turn either. But the list is incredibly consistent. This is my kind of comfort list. Anytime I'm playing and I end up dropping some cubes or some games, this is the list that I return back to kind of set myself back onto a positive path, get myself back in the right state of mind, and just kind of level set my expectations. And so this list is incredibly strong. We are going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so first up we have the Mau Mau. And the first location is the hub, which gives us a Lockjaw, which is, I mean, it's okay. We could utilize that to shuffle our Silver Surfer back into our deck, potentially draw it again. We could shuffle out our Mr. Negative into an inverted card right away. And we also have Bast, and that's going to set all of our cards to 3 power. And so we do get some upside there as well. I want to snap here, but I also want to see this one play out. And I think they might retreat because they haven't given us any kind of knowledge into what kind of deck they're running. The Koye was created by the hub, so that's not a good one either. Wow, and then we get the Peak, which would have been much more beneficial had we not used our Bast. And so it's not terrible, but it's not great either. We can play our Lockjaw into a Mr. Negative, but I think we might just play Mr. Negative into an Iron Man. Next turn, we can go with a Mystique into a Lockjaw, and then we can rotate out our Silver Surfer. The reason I'm throwing Iron Man out now is just in case they're running a Leecher deck, then the Peak could have set their Leech to a 3-power play. The Professor X is a tough one, because now we can lock down a lane now. But do we want to? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. We have a decent push in the Peak. We can lock this one down. No, let's not lock it down this turn. Let's set a Mystique out on the board. And then next turn, we can lock down a lane with Professor X. And that's going to really make it difficult for them to win the rest of the game. We can do a Silver Surfer that will buff up our Mystique. Or we could just do a large play into the Peak. And they're not going to have a lot of chance to react to it. We're going to use our Professor X. And we might as well use our Brood. Just a decent power push to support the Professor X play. Now, if they use a Juggernaut, they would push off what... Actually, no, we have initiative. They wouldn't push off what we had. They do run 3 cards, an Agent 13. I have to expect maybe a Devil Dino here. And if so, then we can't counter it with our Rogue. Our Rogue would steal the Mr. Fantastic instead. And so if they have a Devil Dino, it's not going to be able to beat the Silver Surfer play that would buff up our Mystique. It would give us an extra 5 power here, which would, of course, be doubled. So we'd have 38 power in the Peak. We already have the hub locked down. And what a strange way to start the video, but it does showcase the kind of flexibility the list has. Locations like the peak, some decks it's just going to tank those decks. But for us, it does help the consistency and allows us to continue to find strong plays all the way throughout. And so let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Wannabe Beetle. And the first location is Wakanda Embassy, which gives us a boost to our Iron Man, our Rogue, and our Mr. Negative. And so our Mr. Negative's not so negative anymore. He is Mr. Positive, and that is what we are trying to be. This meta is tough. This meta has brought down a lot of good people. It's rough. We are ready for a change, but we try to remain positive wherever possible. Let's go ahead and play Brood into Death's Domain. We are okay with it getting destroyed because we'll push some power there. Now, they do have an Ebony Maw, which tells me maybe they have something that can go wide. So maybe it's an Ironheart. Maybe they're going to look for a Wong into a White Tiger into an Odin. Could be their playline here, and that would push power into all of these lanes, and it'd be pretty difficult for us to stop unless we can get the high roll on them. So I'm going to go ahead and do our Mr. Negative. Depending on what they drop here, may determine what we play next. So they do drop the Wong. We don't have initiative, unfortunately. But if they are going to go greedy with like a Wong into a Mystique, we are going to absolutely steal it here. We're going to steal it. We're going to use our Bast to increase the power of all of the cards we have left in our hand. And none of them are great, but we are going to steal Wong. We can do the double trigger of Wolfsbane, the double trigger of Silver Surfer. And that's going to be a pretty big power push for us. So they do go with the double White Tiger. And so that pushes another one over into Death's Domain. Now, if they do an Odin, they might push one more into Death's Domain. And that's going to push this to 8. So about 15. If any of these get hit, maybe it goes up to 17. And at max, I'd say about 19. So can we beat that power push? So we do have Wolfsbane. That's going to be a 12 power push plus the 3. So that's 15 plus the Silver Surfer. That's going to be another 6. So it's going to be 21 plus 3. So it's going to be 24 power here. We should have them outpaced here. This is going to be 12 extra power in this lane. So that brings us up to 16. If they get one more White Tiger, that's fine. We can win here and here. I want to go ahead and snap, but I also want to let this one resolve. We're going to go ahead and just let it play out. I expect the Odin play. Yep, the Odin play does come down, and it pushes a White Tiger. It doesn't really matter. Ooh, now if it pushes it over into Death's Domain, it would be a tie. But since it doesn't, we do find our win condition. Or we do find the value to win, not the win condition. I've been corrected. I say win condition wrong quite a bit. So we do have the 34 power here, the 16 power in this lane. Had they gotten 7 here, then I think we would have lost. Had this Tiger went here, they would have been 20 power in this lane. We would have lost this by 19. And we would have lost because the Ironheart hit this one. And if a White Tiger had went over there, we would have lost the tiebreaker. That was a lot closer than it should have been. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. See if we can get a little bit higher cube gain. I'll snap a little bit earlier this time. All right, next up we have Renubu. The first location is Hellfire Club. We have our Angela. We're going to be able to throw that onto the board on 2. We can throw Brood into a different lane. We can cap out the lane with our Wolfsbane, and then we're looking for what we can use to give the biggest power push after that. So they have an Angela as well. They are running a Thanos deck, and so they might have a Killmonger. Killmonger's not necessarily going to impact us too heavily. We get a Carnage, so that we know that they have a Carnage somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and throw Brood into the mirror dimension here. I think Daily Bugle is probably going to be their hardest to win lane, or hardest for us to win lane. I think that's going to be one of their biggest power push lanes, just because of the Angela, and the way that Thanos works with Angela is pretty decent. You can use the Space Throne, buff up Angela, move it out. You can use your stones into a Killmonger to clear that space. You just have several ways to utilize those cards. Now, the middle location from Mirror Dimension does turn into Hellfire Club, which is kind of beautiful. I don't know that they can really do much else. I'm going to go ahead and throw Wolfsbane into Hellfire Club. We're going to push that one over the top. I'm going to go ahead and throw Ironheart into Hellfire Club. That should push that one over the top. After that, we can start stacking into the Hellfire Club. Actually, Hellfire... I was thinking the Hellfire Club really restricted the Thanos deck because of the 1 cost restriction, but with Quinjet, they are able to play these stones into this location. A complete oversight on my end, unfortunately, but that is okay. We could have went with a Rogue to steal their Quinjet, and then they couldn't have played their 1 cost cards here. Unfortunately, we did not catch that, but it's okay. We're going to go with Rogue into a Bast in the Daily Bugle lane. We do have our Silver Surfer, we have our Wolfsbane. Those are going to be 3 power resources that we can throw onto the board. Are we able to win the Hellfire Club? I think so, but I also think it's going to be kind of tight. And so the Rogue comes down. It doesn't have anything to steal from, unfortunately, but we have our Wolfsbane, we have our Silver Surfer. This lane is going to be stacked. This lane is going to be stacked as well, because this is going to give it a 12 power boost in Hellfire Club. Unless they're playing very heads up and they know to drop an extra big resource into the Hellfire Club location, then I think we should win this one. What I'm hoping for is that they push into these 2 lanes, that we're able to use the resources that we have to find our win. It is possible that we lose here, but I am going to stick it out and see if they do the heads up play or not. And so they do end up retreating. I'm guessing they didn't have another big power push, or they didn't have enough confidence that they could swing one of these other 2 lanes. We'll take the retreats from time to time. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one, see if we can get a better setup for ourselves. All right, next up we have Killer Monkey. First location is Death's Domain. We do have our Psylocke and our Mr. Negative. I'm going to go ahead and skip on turn 1 before we snap. I don't want them to know that we're necessarily excited that our opening hand. I want to leave it a little bit up to mystery for them. We are going to go ahead and snap now that we are going to play our Psylocke, and then we'll be able to play our Mr. Negative on a 3 into a lot of inverted resources. We might be able to get our Rogue inverted, our Brood, our Ironheart, our Angela. All of those are going to be able to potentially be inverted, and we can get some really big power pushes as a result. And so from the hub, we get Cerebro. Unfortunately, we draw into Mystique, which is one of the ones that I would have liked to be inverted alongside our Iron Man. That way we could play Iron Man on 5 into Mystique, plus several other cards on 6, but it is okay. It is what it is. We do get the negative Silver Surfer here. I'm going to play Wolfsbane into the hub. That is going to give us a buff on our Wolfsbane, and then we'll be able to shift and go from there. We do have a couple of negative resources coming in. We have the Rogue now to steal any kind of ongoing ability that they have. I think they are going to win the Shuri's Lab location, though, and so I think we might try to avoid it. We're going to play Iron Man into the hub. We could do a Mystique to copy it and then a Silver Surfer. If we get our Brood, that's going to be perfect for Death's Domain, as trying to find a way to win that location, because this deck doesn't do great in Shuri's Lab. It doesn't get a lot of upside from it, but the strength of this deck lies in how easy it is to read your relative strength. So if you know that you have a really good shot at winning, you can easily snap, or if they snap, you can pretty easily assess if you have a shot at finding your win conditions or not. Be able to determine if you should rinse and repeat, if you should reset, or exactly what course of action you should use. I'm going to go with Mystique into the hub. We do have 2 cards that are going to be able to receive the Silver Surfer buff. We can go with Brood into Death's Domain. I will also use our Rogue, and then we'll throw down the Silver Surfer into Death's Domain, just in case for some reason they use a Cosmo. I don't think they will, but this lane and this one are going to be our win condition lanes, and so I do want to push a little bit of extra power into this lane. We're just going to give up Shuri's Lab. There's just no way that we can compete with it. I would say they might have Hawk in their deck because of the Rock Slide, but we'll see. I think we can outpower the Hawk. Ooh, they changed Death's Domain into a Stormed or a Flooded lane, thinking that that was going to be their win con, but that is not. We do have power that we were pushing over there. We're going to copy the Iron Man with our Mystique, which is going to elevate our power level quite a bit. We have the Brood that is definitely going to outpower the Storm into the Silver Surfer. That will give us our upside. Not a huge game, not an incredibly perfect layout game, but we did find the resources that we needed. We were able to push a really big power push on that last turn. Even though it didn't look like most of the game was in our favor, we still found a way to win. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one and keep it going. All right, next up we have Mix OP. The first location is Hala. and we have our Mr. Negative. So we'll be able to, if we get Psylocke here, we can ramp into it. Otherwise, we don't have to. We can, oh wow, now we can lean in and keep it and have quite a bit of upside. We draw into our Bast. That's going to give Mr. Negative +4 power. It's going to give Angela +3, Ironheart +3, and then Rogue +2. So a huge tempo swing from the Bast play. I'm going to go ahead and play Wolfsbane into the Savage Land. On turn 4, we can play our Mr. Negative into Hala. I do want to avoid the Lechugia for now. Oh, so they ramp up with a Psylocke into a Rock Slide. Very interesting. This has to be a Hawk deck. So if we can find a way to maybe steal their Hawk with our Rogue, then we can find ourselves with a potential win that way. Otherwise, I think we're just going to stick to the regular play line. They do use a Bast of their own. They had a Black Widow that they drop onto the board, so we're not going to be able to draw here. And our board does start getting clogged up, but Hala gets relieved, and so that is okay. Let's go ahead and go with the Angela into the Black Widow into the Ironheart. Then on turn 6, we'll be able to see what we draw into. We're only going to get one inverted resource because of the Black Widow, which is unfortunate. They did drop it very, very well, but they drop Hawk into the Lechugia. That sends some rocks into their deck. We have quite a few in ours, but that's okay. We have the Rogue, and then if we get Mystique, oh no, we get a super buffed up rock. So where do we find our win? So we can go Forge into a buffed up rock, into a Rogue to steal Hawk's ability. They may copy one of them with a Mystique, but I do think we are okay. We're gonna steal Hawk, and that's going to be really, really unfortunate. They spent 6,000 tokens. Most likely they spent 6,000 tokens on Hawk, and we're gonna steal it away in this game, and it's going to be detrimental. We do turn first, and so if they use a Mystique to copy it, it looks like they're using Mystique over here. And so we are okay. They are going to shuffle more rocks into their deck with the Lechugia and the Taskmaster. Oh, the Taskmaster copies the 3 power from Hawk. And so it's not even the Mystique that we thought it was. It was a Taskmaster, which would have been good if we had not stolen their Hawk. So we end up with the clean sweep, all 3 lanes because of Rogue. Just very unfortunate that they had to drop it a turn early. Once next season's card comes out, I think there will be some sneakier ways to use Hawk, and there's going to be a lot less time to react to it. But as for now, with Rogue, we do find our counter. We are going to go ahead and end the video off of that one. Overall, the deck runs very, very well. Just about as good as I said it was on day 1. I do still think it needs to be tuned, just because of how strong Silver Surfer can be when mixed with Bast and Mr. Negative and all of these other consistent play lines. The power potential and the average power level that the deck puts out is very, very high. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.